this is that Pierce talks about selfish and unaccountable believing plants the seeds of ideology and breeds irreconcilable differences.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can we talk about that specific to, and you can just run with this. I mean, what I'm trying to figure out on the ideology front is how far back. I mean, this is not new to the human condition. So we've been at odds with one another for centuries. So like with your background, where do you see the first stories of ideology that I think ring true for this discussion? And are they good? What is the good and then what is the bad? Because to me, they seem to be more toxic than beneficial.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that you put it this way historically, Joey, because the oldest story we think we have is the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is from about 2700 BCE. And at least that's the setting of the story. We think it was written down not too long after that. And Gilgamesh was actually, we believe, a historical figure. And so the Epic of Gilgamesh is, okay, and think about it like this. Our oldest story, what's it going to be about? It's about a leader abusing his position.
Yeah.
That in itself sets us up for what's going to play out over centuries. In fact, in preparation for our time together today, I called one of my old friends yesterday. He was one of my best friends in college. He always blew apart categories. He was a hippie fraternity guy. So if you can imagine that, the South in the time, fraternity guys with button-up shirts and the snappy blazers and everything. And he was a bell-bottom pants and long hair and beard and Jesus shoes and that kind of thing. He now is pastoring a church equidistant between Harvard and MIT. And he told me when we talked yesterday, he said, I got more PhDs in the building than I've ever been around in my life. And so I called him up because I said, look, his name was Clyde. I said, look, Clyde, why is there so much crazy ideology in the religious world these days? I mean, take people calling themselves evangelicals. He and I would have called ourselves evangelicals in college. And in college, 1970s, evangelicals were forward-thinking, culturally sensitive, philosophically astute folks. I grew up in a Baptist church that wouldn't let you dance or play music, and as a soul music guitarist, it was bad for my business, so I had to get out of there. But with our groups in college, this was the time of the Jesus movement across America. So my friend, his hippiness was connected to that, but we were all about art and culture, modern art. We were all about music. We were all, and not just, the music of the time, the Woodstock stuff. We were all about, classical music and also, and so, we were quoting Shakespeare. And this was evangelicalism in America in the 70s. We were, okay, what did Foucault mean when he said evangelicalism now? Why has it gone so crazy and so far right and so ideological in ways that it wasn't then? And he said, he said to me, I think it's just the oldest story in the world. He said, look at the book of Judges in the Old Testament. He said, the people did what was good in their own eyes. They departed from God. And they eventually came back and they departed again, and they came back and they departed again. It's this pendulum swing through human history. He said, it's all about control. It's all about power. It's all about importance. It's all about self-esteem and value. It's all about tribe. It's not about religious truth at all. It's not about the gospel. It's about these issues that human beings have struggled with since there were human beings. And they do it wrong. I've always loved a Winston Churchill quote. You can always depend on Americans to do the right thing once they've exhausted every other possibility. And like human history is all of us resisting every other trying, every other possibility, resisting anything good, and then finally making our way out of the morass we've created for ourselves. Right now, we're going through one of those morass times. And I've often had a saying in my life since the 70s. I have said the worse things get, the more of an optimist I become.
Yep, that is one of your famous phrases.
Because people can put up with unbelievably bad stuff until things get literally intolerable. And then it's a wake-up call to a lot of the people who've been sleepwalking through the disaster. It's almost like the zombie movie, and all the zombies just kind of moving forward, right? And it's like, what's going to wake everybody up here? It's got to get that bad. One of the philosophers who's almost unreadable, Hegel, had this view of human history: thesis, antithesis, higher synthesis. You go from one extreme to the other extreme, and then you find a midpoint that's higher than either of those. He thought of all of human history as having that structure to it.
Well, I've always thought that the Hegelian dialectic was a powerful tool. I'm with you on the Hegel front because he's so dark, but I think that to me we don't have that framing.
No.
At all.
We don't have any. What kind of framing do we have these days philosophically? There's so many people whose lives are just devoid of a conceptual apparatus to help them understand and evaluate what they see or hear around them. And that's what I see that's so crazy. My friend that I was talking to yesterday, he's a Christian minister, and the Christian faith is supposed to be about taking care of people and caring for the least among us, the weakest, the helpless, the outsider, the immigrant, the whatever. And it's like it's gone in the opposite direction to the extent that I know of a local Christian school where the daughter of a pastor is having to hide from her parents that she wears a mask at school to prevent the spread of disease or getting disease herself. She's had to hide this from her pastor father. And, how have